animal welfare, animal rights, animal cruelty. These are significant political issues. In New Zealand, animal products industries play a major role in our economy. It is my view that serious reform is needed. Factory farms need to be abolished. Higher animal welfare standards are required. And we need to begin phasing out the large-scale meat industry, especially its more industrialized and brutal elements. For humanitarian reasons. These industries are defined by cruelty and suffering. Why should we care? As beings who can suffer, the normalization of cruelty and brutality is not in our interest. As beings who can suffer, the corrosion of empathy and compassion is not in our interest. As beings who can suffer, widespread desensitization to inhumanity is not in our interest. As beings who can suffer, a society that has learnt to tolerate and overlook depravity is not in our interest. As beings who can suffer, a society that aggressively opposes suffering is in our interest. That is the simple reality. And there is more too. We are precedent-based creatures. People act according to precedent. Our actions write the guidelines that will inform the actions of others. What precedent do we establish when we let others suffer for our own gain? And is that a precedent that benefits us? We are deeply social creatures. It is in our interest to maintain and defend our capacity for empathy and compassion. These things are very valuable to a social creature. They enrich social existence. We should not trade them in for sheer convenience and simple pleasures. Opposition to cruelty is in your rational self-interest. That is the reality. Some people may regard animal welfare concerns as childish empathy or compassion gone astray. I regard it as a natural consequence of self-interest. Animal welfare concerns are a natural byproduct of rational self-interest. Some people will mock the very idea of caring about animal well-being. By all means, condemn your loved ones to existence within a society that has learnt to turn a blind eye to suffering. That is a widespread skill at present, and it is a very dangerous skill. A society that is desensitized to suffering is a threat to us all. A society that has learnt to tolerate and overlook cruelty is a threat to us all. A society that has learnt to accept brutality and inhumanity is a threat to us all. Cruelty is normalized. Empathy and compassion are gradually corroded. People become more and more indifferent to suffering. As Tolstoy famously said, so long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. That brings my spiel about moral philosophy to an end. I hope that you understand my reasoning. We need to ban factory farming, we need to ban live animal exports, we need to crack down on animal abuse, we need to gradually phase out the large-scale meat industry. We need to restrict imports on products the production of which involves animal cruelty. For moral reasons. There are also environmental concerns, and in some cases health concerns, that help to further reinforce this argument. If our society continues to advance, as I hope it will, I do think that the modern meat industry will be looked back upon in the way we look back upon slavery in modern times. The sheer scale of the brutality and absolute amorality is very disturbing. The degree to which it is accepted is very, very disturbing. When the industrialization of death and suffering is so obviously repugnant. Because that is what the meat industry is. Death and suffering on an industrial level. Modern capitalism of the ugliest variety. Holocaust comparisons are inevitable. There are only two examples of large-scale, industrialized killing. The Holocaust and the animal products industry. These are the only examples. The only 2 times killing has been conducted on such a large scale with the efficiency of modern industrial processes. It is quite something that one case of industrialized death is viewed as the ultimate evil, while the other is widely accepted. Of course, I think human life is more valuable than animal life, but animal life does have value. From the perspective of rational morality, it does. And at a certain point the scale becomes so great that all considerations of differing moral value become a waste of time. Many say we are natural meat eaters, we cannot survive without it. Most people can survive without meat easily. It is funny how people who pride themselves on their strength claim to be weak the moment an evil needs to be justified. This is a long-standing ritual. I am not a vegan and have argued with vegans on numerous occasions. I do not think eating meat makes you a terrible person. I do not believe in shaming or demonizing those who do eat meat. But I do think systemic changes need to be made. We must phase out the large-scale meat industry. We must make the meat industry smaller and more humane. We must improve animal welfare standards. We must abolish factory farms and ban live animal exports. We must restrict imports of products, the production of which involves animal cruelty. We must further our own rational self-interest as beings who can suffer. The issue of live animal exports has recently been back in the spotlight. National was very desperate to abolish the ban put in place by Labour. And of course they were, because they serve farming interests who benefit from such practices. Logistically, live animal exports cannot be humane and profitable at once. You need to put a huge number of animals on a boat if the shipment is to be sufficiently profitable. And the dangers involved are massive, as was shown when a ship sunk, killing thousands and thousands of animals. We must introduce stronger protections for animals and more serious penalties. Serious reform is required. The current industry is totally indefensible. Cruel conditions, brutal slaughter, all on an industrial scale. Creatures brought into existence exclusively to be exploited and slaughtered. Grown plump before being gutted and discarded. Killed and thrown onto the trash pile over minor imperfections. Subject to torturous conditions. We have total control over them, we create them, we mistreat them, and then we slaughter them. In what is often a totally needless ritual that contributes a little if any value to human society. That is their lives. Often these are intelligent animals too, pigs and the like. They are forcefully inseminated, they are forced to raise their young in cramped, disgusting conditions. They are callously slaughtered, only for the young to live the exact same hideous life. And it goes on like that forever. An eternal cycle of barbarism and brutality, all on a momentous scale. The modern animal products industry is hideous. Capitalism in its ugliest form. Does it not seem slightly messed up? Giving children picture books with piggies and moo cows in them. Oh, and by the way, we brutalize and slaughter these farmyard friends because they sure taste good. We subject them to inconceivable horrors. We make them live the worst possible existence. Simple means to our ends, brutally exploited, slaughtered, discarded, thrown away, brought into the world only to be shoved in cramped conditions, plumped up, slaughtered, and consumed. Doesn't that feel just a little messed up? Just a little morally questionable? Calling it severely messed up is an understatement. Some people refuse to see this because they think it makes them evil. They are afraid of the moral implications of accepting the evil of this industry. They worry about the implications for their own moral character. I think getting stuck on conversations about personal guilt and personal obligations is counterproductive and a total waste of time. I think condemning and shaming people over dietary decisions is dumb and unhelpful. What we need to do is find systemic solutions and get behind those solutions. That is how you make real change happen. That is how you mobilize people behind serious policy and real change. They didn't abolish slavery with ethical consumerism. Harm reduction is good, but it isn't everything. And I do not believe in calling people evil for what they eat. I do believe in systemic reforms that make our society more just. I do believe in that, and I believe in it very strongly. Reform is needed. We must make cruelty a thing of the past. We must honour our supposed values. We must reinforce our supposed values. We must revitalise our moral spirit. New Zealand can lead the world into a new enlightened age.